Okay. Okay, that's fine. Um, who else? What about you, Mimi? Mimi, do you have any question? What about you, Mimi? Do you have any question? I can't hear you, but here I'm just going to. I can hear you now. Yes, I can hear you now. Go on. Okay, after Mimi, I'll call on Jack. Yeah. Mm. Okay, okay, we'll take a look at it shortly. So, how to make a design responsive? Okay, that's fine. I think I lost the audio somewhere, but hopefully. Okay, let me go with Jack. Go ahead, Jack. I won. Yeah, evening, evening. What's your question? Go ahead. Okay, so how to make, let me go ahead and share my screen. How to make a screen responsive. How to convert a button to a component. Okay, Christiana, go ahead. What's your question? Christiana, go ahead. I can take your question. Now, what's your question? Okay, Christiana, you can just type. Okay, someone typed it. Someone typed something inside the comment section. It's really afternoon. Okay. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I will start answering. Okay, Oladele, what's your question? Is Christina here now? Oladele, what's your question? You can unmute your mic and ask your question. Okay, difference between a front end designer and a UI UX. Are you the one I'm owing airtime? I am owing someone. I keep forgetting, but I remember your voice. After this class, remind me. DM, send a direct DM. I think the last time you didn't send your, when you sent your number, you didn't send your network. Yes. Okay. Okay, good. So let me start from this one, the consume an application. When it is just designed, if it is just designed on Figma, people can't use it. Just designed on Figma, people can't use it. So when we are done designing on Figma, we need engineers to develop it. You can call them engineers, you can call them developers. Now, when it comes to development, you have two different types of engineers. You have the front-end developers or engineers, and you have the back-end developers or engineers. So front-end developers are the ones that take our designs on Figma, then develop it with code, right? So they take our designs on Figma and they go ahead to develop it with code. So as we on Figma right now, all these buttons you see, all these designs you see here, the menus and everything, it was first designed on Figma. Then the front-end designer took the design, interpreted the design from Figma to code, right? The back-end guys are the ones that implement the logic. I won't go further than that. But the front-end guys will take your design from Figma and they will code it. And if you are here, let's say, and they copy a lot of things from the design. Let's say you hand the designer, if you hand over this design to, let's say, a front-end developer, when they are interpreting this, they can actually copy the codes directly. So all they need to do is to enter this particular button here, which says dev mode. Now, once they are on dev mode, they are able to select any of these. So if they should select, for instance, this button, okay? If they should select this button, for instance, you can see the codes right here. So they are the ones that take this code, then interpret it into something that people can use all over the world. And this is also why you don't use your Corel Draw to design UI, okay? In as much as you can, if I ask anyone to replicate this design on PowerPoint, they can do it, or on Corel Draw, or on Photoshop. But the reason why we don't use it is because if you make all those design on Photoshop, if you hand it over to developer, it's like this to make their work easier. They will have to start eyeballing it. But yeah, it is easier now that we even have all those AI. That's why I told you guys to confirm your emails. So if you have emails right now, you can easily convert some of your design to code and easily test it out. There are also other platforms that if you plug in your Figma design, it's quickly able to translate it to code. But again, this does not replace front-end developers, okay? So yes, as a UI UX designer, if you have time, you can still learn front-end development. It will increase your probability. Now, if you are a UI UX designer and you learn how to code as well, you can even call yourself UX engineer or product engineer. You can just give yourself any name that will make them pay you more. So that's it. Okay, let me take some questions before I answer the rest. Khadija, what's your question? Okay, okay, so when it comes to engineers or developers being able to interpret a design from from Figma direct to code, it's like on the design of creative window, right? But sometimes on the development part, there might be some technical issues why that design might not work. There might also be some skill gap. So there are instances whereby maybe the engineer or the developer does not have the skill to be able to develop a particular design. In that instance, they might need to be able to just bring down the design a little bit and design what they can. So that is one case. Another case is where it is not just technically feasible. For instance, on Figma added a feature known as progressive blur. Okay, let me show you this feature added by Figma. Progressive blur. Now this progressive blur feature, sorry, let me give this a color. Let me just give it a color so we can see what I mean. So if I come down to effect and I go to let me see, layer blur is not here. Yeah, progressive. Okay, so progressive blur, what it does is you can control the blur of the shape from one angle. You can see, I can say start here. Now if I design this, you can see how sleek and nice this looks. Like the top here is very sharp and the bottom here is blur. This looks nice. This is a great design. This is a very beautiful design. But unfortunately, we don't have this as part of the web standard for blur property and CSS, because on the web, front-end developers use something called CSS to style elements. So if you go and check the blur properties for CSS, so if I type in CSS blur property, okay, if I type in CSS blur property, let me just come here. Sorry, I just like giving you guys like a good understanding so that you know what you're saying. So if you come to the CSS blur property here, I don't know if you're going to understand, but we have things like blur, brightness, contrast, grayscale. We have quite a number of properties here, but you see that progressive properties, progressive blur property is not here. So if you design something like this on Figma, it's going to be difficult. In fact, right now it's not possible with CSS yet to interpret this design now to code. So that's where issues come in. So the only thing they might be able to do here, if you call in like a very talented front-end developer, what they might be able to trade off here is to layer things on top of each other. Maybe they use the first image, they create like a shape with complete blur, then they get another section again, stack it on top, but this other one they will now add a mask to mask it out, and when they do that it might not look exactly like this again. So it's really it's just that meeting point. So that's why if you are designing, a lot of people tell you to make your design realistic by following common standards that have been tested and trusted before you start showing us your creativity. Okay, so either it's a skill gap or it will be a technological gap or a money gap. There are times that you might design something, the time it will take to develop it might be longer, so the product owner or the product manager or the engineer will just go for something simpler. For instance, you might be on Figma designing heaven and earth. Meanwhile, the developer is planning to develop with a particular framework, right? So if they are hoping to develop with a particular framework, whatever you are designing, it might not come out that way because they might be constrained with that framework based on what you've designed. But the UX can still be the same. So that's the issue. So I hope I've been able to answer this one. Do you get? Oh, okay. Who else? Christiana, do you want to ask a question, or is the one you asked already? So if you don't want to ask a question, bring down your hand so that I can know those that want to ask question. Oladele, what's your question again? I can see your hand up. Okay. So Christiana, I can still see your hand up. If your audio is having issues, you can just type it in on the chat. So let's go ahead. This second one, how to convert a button to a component. It's very easy. First of all, when do you need to convert an element to a component? Like I told you guys, anything you place on your design is called an element. Okay, so if you visit a website or anywhere, all these things you see on the website, they are called elements. Okay, so anytime you discover that your element is going to be reusable, basically reusable UI elements. Okay, components are reusable UI elements. Now, what do we mean by reusable UI elements? Let's see if I can go to Jumia. I always like going to Jumia. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've been buying so much. I bought a lot of things from them before Temu came up. But I hope to go back to Jumia soon. So let's, I think the network is quite slow. Okay, let me just come back here. So whenever you are creating a design and you notice that a particular element is going to be repeating itself often, what do? You convert it to a component. That way, it serves as the parent element, and any changes you make to it, irrespective of where you are in the design, it will apply to all the children. So that's just the whole idea behind components. So how do you create that? So whether it's a button or any other type of element, all you need to do is to create it first. So let's create a button that says this is a component. Okay, let me use this. Okay, let me just do something more realistic. Buy now or sign up for free. So already we know how to create buttons, right? After typing, you do your what? Shift A. That's how you add it into a frame. So let me just do maybe 24 here, and let me do 16 right here. So after this, let me do 24 here as well. After this, I'm just going to add like a few. Maybe I want to use like this blue. Okay, so I have that blue there. Let's give it a little bit of curve. Let's do 4 curve here, or let's do 8. Okay, so let me not forget to change this to 16. Let me change it to 16. Okay, so our button is realistic. Okay, so instead of this, instead of 24 now, I think I want to go back to 16. So let's assume this is our button, okay, and we want to be able to reuse this button often. All we need to do now is to convert it to a component. Now, how do you convert something to a component? You have different ways. You can come here on the property bar. You can see this, right? Sorry, you can see this here, this icon here. So you can click on it, and you can click on this create component icon right here, okay? Or you can also right click on it, and then you are going to see create components. Or you use the shortcut Control Alternate K, and it's going to create a component. Now, whenever you create a component, it will still be on your page. But if you want to start using that component, make sure you avoid using the parent one. Instead, you go to your Asset tab. You are going to find all the components you've created here. Then you can start using them. So you can see right now, if I open this, it's showing me only 2 components. You can see only these 2 components. But once I come in here, right click and say create component, it's going to be 3 now. Now you can see I have the 3rd one. Let me change the name. Let's call it button. Okay, so you can see now we have it here. So in case I'm creating my design and I need a button, I simply come to assets and then I drag the button inside. That is how you use you create and use components. So what is the difference between these components and the asset? So the one from the asset is called the instance of the components. So if you come back to file, if you take a look at this icon, the icon here for the button, you can see that it's like an empty diamond shape. So that's how you know the assets. Okay, if you want to know the parent component, it's going to have this kind of icon, this group of 4 empty diamond icon, right? This is the main component and this is the instance of the components. So what's the advantage of a component? Let's assume I have these instances in 10 or 4 places. If I have all the instances in 10 or 4 places, if I go to the original one, that's the parent one, and I change the color, let's say gradient, you can see it applies to all of them. You can see it applies to all of them. If I add any serere, it applies to all of them. So let's say we apply white here, okay, and we also come back here. Let's make it 100%, but let's come here. You can see how it's working. Let's do this way, this way, this way, okay. Now for here, let's do 10, and here let's do 0, okay. Let's do 50. Let me rotate it again. Okay, let's do 20 and 0 here. Okay, we can now come in here. Let's take this way. I'm just trying to give it like a little shine there. Okay, we can also change it to, okay, good. Now you can see that whatever I'm doing to this first one is going to be affecting this other one. Now let's say when I design this button, I forgot that I will be needing icon on some of the buttons. All I need to do is to come back to this particular one. Which icon should I use now? Okay, let me just create a frame. By the way, our icon, we can use 24 by 24 or 20 by 20, but let's come in here. We're just going to cut this, come to paste it. Because it's an auto frame, it's going to basically adjust automatically. You can see now we have a space for icons. Let's reduce this. So let's use 8 for our gap. Now we have a space for our icons. So anything you want to do, you can come back to the original one and implement it, and you see the changes across the other elements. So that's how you create components and why you create components. Any other question at this point? Okay, so let me strike this out. Let me just let's just do a little bit of something here. Okay, Christiana, what's your question? Christiana, are you there? I can't hear you. Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead. I can hear you. Okay. 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 So I'm also going to pick them one after the other. For now, I will advise you to focus on the basics, like the design for now. So I'm trying to answer for blend mode now. For now, I'll advise you to focus on the basics. Learn the basics. You know, your spacing, and your alignments, your contrasts. Learn those ones first. But eventually, blend mode basically It's basically a properties you use to tweak how elements that are stacked on top of each other interact with each other. That's basically what blend mode is. So when elements are stacked on top of each other, the way they interact, you use blend mode. That's basically to blend elements on top of each other. So let's say I have a frame here, okay? Let's say I have these two shapes. Let's say the first shape, let's give it blue. The second shape, let's give it orange. Now already you can see that this second shape, because I drew it last, it's going to be on top of the blue one, because that's how these layers work. You see these layers here, that's how they work. So if I draw something else or type something else, it's going to stack on top of the last one that I did, right? So the more you keep adding, the more they keep stacking on top of each other. Now let's say I want this blue one to be on top. What I can do is to select it and change what you call the order. So I select it, right click on it. I can now say bring to front. Now I've changed the order of the layer. Okay, I can still select this one. I'll say bring to front, or select it and say send to back. So just know that anytime you're adding elements, they stack on top of each other based on the newest one. But you can change the order by right clicking them and saying bring to front or send to back. Now here is the thing, because this is on top of this particular one, if you notice, you can't see what is behind. Anywhere where you have this yellow, you can't see what is behind on this other part of the shape. So blend mode is basically used to blend two layers, right? So they have 5 different types of blend mode. So if you click here, you have the normal one and the pass through. This is the two you use, and see how this one is affecting it. So in most cases, these things you try them out. Okay, you try them out. That's the best way to learn blend mode. You try them out and also read more about blends. Okay. Now the next section basically adds white. The next section basically adds white. So things like lightning, we make it lighter. So you can see it adds white to it. Are you seeing it? Meanwhile, the next section adds, now because it's adding white, that's why you are not seeing this other part, because my background is white. Like I said, the first section we add black, this section we add white, but with varying degrees of saturation. Okay, the last this other one we add gray. So this adds dark, black, white. The next part we add gray. So you have things like overlay, soft light, hard light. Now this other part basically change the hue. Okay, this part inverts and this other part changes the hue. So if you go through here, you can just see how they interact between each other. Okay, so we use them in design to create different effects. That's basically what we use them for. We use them to create different effects. Let's assume I want something to be shiny. Okay, if I want something to be shiny, I can just add an interactive word blend mode. It will make it look more shiny than maybe if I just left it. Okay, so if you see all those design where something is extremely shiny or extremely glossy, just know that apart from adding color and effects, they probably layer it on top. Let me see if I can just show you what I mean. So let's what should I do now to show you guys? Okay, let me just do this. Let me create something like this. Okay. So let me see. Okay, so let me just come here, create another one here. Okay. Let me make this. And let me just add like a blur effect. Okay. Now, if you look at this, you can see how it's like a little bit glossy at that point. But it's really not blending well because at some point we will not be able to see that blue again. But if I select this now and change it to something like plus lighter, you can see the intensity have increased, right? If I also change to screen and lighting, okay, screen is not really there, but you can see like plus lighter basically increased the intensity of that shine over there. Sometimes it can be too much. So if it is too much, you can now come here and reduce it, say 50. So if I hide this before, after, you can see the difference. So you use it to create different types of effects, basically. The best way to learn this, like I said, the best way to learn this is watch someone create an effect with blend mode. Learn that and move on. But at this stage, okay, one of the most important things you need now is the foundation. So don't be too focused on these other ones. You get here maybe in like in the next 4 months, you can start trying these things out. So that's for that. I hope you get it now. So just know that the first set, those ones add black, the other ones add white, the other ones add gray, and the other ones invert the color, and the other ones add color. They basically manipulate the hue. That's it. So someone asked, should I use shape or frames for image elements? So anytime you want to add an image, you might not use auto layout, okay? You won't be able, because image is just a single element. You mostly use auto layout when you have elements that have other, when you have like an element that have other elements inside it. For instance, buttons usually have what? Containers, and also they might include icons, okay? So that's why we use auto frame for it, so that auto frame will help us adjust it. Remember, auto frame didn't come with Figma version 1. Before auto frame, what we normally do is to draw a frame and type inside. But time goes on, we discover that it was quite stressful, because anytime you are trying to adjust the text, you have to also start adjusting the frames as well. But with auto frame, if everything works well, the text will be adjusting on its own, or the content inside will be adjusting dynamically, so you don't have to stress too much about that. So if you are trying to work on something like an image, I will always go with frames over shapes. The only time I will go with a shape for image is if I want to create like a custom mask. Okay? If I want to create like a custom mask for my image, then I'll go with shapes. But aside that, I always go with frame. Then I'll give it a fixed width, right? A fixed width and a fixed height. So what do I mean by that? If I know that my shape, my picture is going to be a rectangle, a square, or a circle, I always go with a frame, okay? So I can draw my frame and say, okay, this frame, I want this picture to be on the width 250 and on the height 200. Now I can say, this is what I want my picture to be. So I determine the size of the picture, then I draw the frame, and then I have two ways of adding the picture. If I want to be able to interact with the picture freely within this frame, okay? If I want to be able to interact with this picture freely within this frame, then I can get my picture, let's say portrait. Let's say skin care model portrait. So if I want to be able, remember you have to use other platforms to get high resolution images. I'm just using Google just because of time. So let's open up this one. This one has license. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to open one. I think the network is quite slow. Let me copy. And I'm sure it's still loading, but let me just, if I want to be able to interact with that image within the frame, the best thing to do is to draw your frame, select your frame, paste the image inside. That's if I even copy the image. Let me see. Okay, let me just bring in an image here. Okay, I think the image actually came through, but it's blurry because it has not loaded before I copied it. I don't like working with low resolution images, but let's just continue. Okay, so if I want to be able to interact with the image within that frame, maybe I want to create that effect we did last week, where you want to add like a hover effect for the image to increase, then it makes sense to just drop the email inside. Then I can adjust the email. Remember, anytime you're adjusting emails, always drag from the angle. Okay, so I can adjust the image the way I want. I can also center it the way I want. Maybe move it this way. Okay, but if I just want the image to take the shape of the frame, irrespective of the size of the frame, then I want to use that image as the frame's background. Okay, I want to use that image as the frame's background. So take note of this. So it depends on what you want to achieve. So if you want to be able to move the image around freely within the frame, copy the image, paste it inside the frame. Just make sure that this frame, just make sure you have clip content activated. If not, if this is not activated, you can see the other parts of the image is now showing. Okay, so make sure it's activated so it can hide that part. So here is one way to do this. But let's say I want to create like a custom mask for my frame, for the image. If I want to create custom mask, that's when I'll use shapes, because you can't really do much with frames. Frames are meant to serve like screens. Okay, so what do I mean by custom mask? I think someone did a design and shared on WhatsApp. Let me bring in that design again. So one of us did this design and shared on the WhatsApp group over the weekend, during the week. Okay, now you can see this image right here. This is a custom mask. So if you want to wrap your image in something like this, frame won't work, because you can't cut out parts of a frame like this. So instead, what I would do is to use the rectangular shape. So I can come in here, pick my rectangle shape, and give it a size that I want. Or let me just go ahead and draw anything here and give it a size that I want. Then I can start working on this. So let me reduce this. I can start working on this. Basically draw another rectangle here. Okay, so I draw another rectangle here. Then I select the two of them. I can see that one side is bigger, so I'll just do this. Select these two now. Come down to my shaping tools and I'll click on union. This is one. So I've gotten this shape and this shape. Now what about this part here that is cut out? I draw another shape. I select from here and just use my eyes to gauge where I want it to cut out. Okay, select this one again, come down here, choose subtract. Now I have the entire thing. The only thing I need to add now is to select it and add like a corner radius. Maybe let's say 32. Okay, good. Okay, let's do 24 or 16. Okay, so we have it here, 16. Now we have a custom shape. So this custom shape, how do I add the image inside? There are two ways. You can use a mask, but that will take you time. So all I need to do is to select this, go to my fill, go to images, and then just add the image I want to use inside this custom shape. Okay, let me see, inside the custom shape, voila. So we have that image now inside a custom shape. So what I can do now to easily move this thing around, if I want to like maintain it professionally, I can just right click and add this inside a frame. So I'll just say frame selection. I can now call this image. okay, so that if I open it up, I can also easily adjust these things, okay. I can adjust it anyhow I want. So this is how I approach using frames and shapes. So if I'm just working on something simple, if I'm just working on a simple shape, maybe square, rectangle, circle, I use frames direct, so it's easy for me to implement interactions. But if I'm looking to add like a custom shape, then I want to work with shapes. I hope that is clear for anyone watching. So those of us on YouTube, if you have a question, don't forget to drop it right in the comment section. Okay, so I hope this settles this. By the way, if you want to try out anything, you can join the Figma file. The Figma file is, the link is on the group chat. You can join it and test out some things. The next one, auto layout properties. Okay, auto layout properties. Well, auto layout properties, they are quite direct. So let's just do something. Let's do something. There was a card we built earlier. Okay, let's build something to really understand auto layouts. Okay, let's build something. We are going to build like a sign-in form. So let's build a sign-in form. Okay. So for our sign-in form, let's just get a logo. Let's get a logo. Let me create a simple logo. Again, we don't create logo, so let me just do a simple logo icon. Okay, so I'm just doing a simple logo icon here. So let's assume this is our logo. We're just going to make it blue. Okay. Next thing, I'm just going to type I'm going to pick my text, and I'm just going to say, welcome back. Okay. We're just going to we are trying to do a simple sign-in page. So I'm going to make sure my text is 16. Okay. The next thing, you can see I'm trying to create, let's set this back to 24. I'm trying to create all the elements I will need. Let me use this back. So I'm trying to create all the elements we need for the form. You can see I've not drawn any frame anywhere. For this our shape here, let's make the height. Let's use 48 for it, okay? Let's use 48. So for this form I'm trying to put, let me do sign-in form, okay? So that you can see what I mean. Sign-in form UI. Okay, so let me just pick one of these. So you can see while I'm designing this, I've not drawn any. It's too small. So this is a form. The network is quite slow, but you can see while I'm doing this, I've not drawn any shape. You can see if you look well, it seems like there's a shape here, okay? But I've not done this. I didn't draw shape first. What I want is to get all the elements that will be inside the form. This is how you always design your components. Anytime you are designing like a form or whatever, get the contents first, not the container. Okay, so if you are designing something like this, let's say on Jumia, if you are designing something like this where you have image, the name of the product, the price here, and the item and this, don't draw this box first. If you draw this box first, you don't fail. It won't be very responsive. What you want to do is to get all the content first. That's the image, the text, and every. So let's do that. For our own, it's just going to be welcome back. Then the input field. We are going to have the input field. I think the first thing we want to have there is your email. So let's create the email for the input field, right? So what we have there is type in your, let's just say your email address. Your email address. Okay, so this is going to be an input field. So I'm just going to do Shift A. Okay, let's add in a little space here. Let's go with 16, and then here we're going to go with 8. So that's our input field. So I'm just going to duplicate it, but you know, what should we do? Should we like add an outline? Okay, let's add a stroke to it. So let's add a stroke, and that stroke is just going to be black, but that black we're going to tone it down to like 25%. So I'm also going to just duplicate here, and I'm just going to call this your password. Now I'm not going to do the reset your password or remember me because of time. So let's say your password. Now if you notice on this one we've added shifts auto layout to our item is set to center. There's the center element, but I'm just going to make it left, because if you use center, you can see this one that is center now. If I keep increasing this, the text will stay at the center, but if I move it to the left, you can see the difference there. Let me do Ctrl Z now. And also if you notice, the width and height now is set to hog. Hog simply means the size of this auto frame container should be exactly the size of the content inside it. That's what hog means. So if I keep increasing the size of the elements inside, you can see the container growing. That's because the height and the width is set to hog. So take note of that. When the height and width is set to hog, anything you have inside it, that is what will determine the size of the parent container, which is this container. So we're just going to have our button here, which is going to say sign in. So let me just do 24 here. Okay, let me edit this more. I think I'm just going to go with 8. Okay, now after I'm done designing all this, if you notice again, because this is set to hog, this is set to hog, their sizes are not equal. And like I told you guys, anytime you mistakenly or intentionally adjust it manually, this will go from hog to fixed. Okay, so take note, the width here is hog, the height here is hog. But if I mistakenly or knowingly click hold drag, it goes from hog to fixed, because now I manually did that dragging. That means it is no longer going to respect that law. Like I said, if you set to hog, the more elements you add inside, the more the box expands. But if you set it to fixed, okay, if I keep adding elements inside, you can see that the parent container is no longer responding to that size. So if that's the behavior you want, fine. But what we eventually do here is, after I'm done adding all the elements I need, okay, I can start arranging everything. So maybe these two forms, okay, should be in one container, so that these ones are separate. So I can now do Shift A. Now once I do Shift A, I can reduce the space in the gap. I can say let's use 8 here. Now once I do Shift A, this becomes a new auto frame, and it's automatically set to this. Let me set it to hog instead of width, so that it will follow, so that it can follow the, it can be the size of the content inside. But here is the thing, adjusting it, you can see that only the adjusting with it, not everything. Okay, so what if I want it to be very responsive? I want everything to move based on the size of the parent's container. All I need to do is to select this, set to fill, select this one as well, set it to fill. Okay, you can see, select this as well, set this to fill instead of hog. Now if I adjust the parent one, all of them will be adjusting as well. But you can see the text, they are not moving. So the text is not responding to this rule. That's because the text is still set to what? Fixed or hog. So I also need to go to the text to set this to what? Fill container. Select this text, set to what? Fill container, and probably just leave this one the way it is. Now, let me now select this guy and add a white. Okay, so let's go ahead and make the corner there, maybe 16. So now, all I need to do is to just adjust it, and everything will fit in perfectly. Maybe these guys, we can also make their curve here 8. No, 8 is too much. I think it's 4. I want it to just look like the button. So the email here, we can also reduce this email here. Instead of 80, we want to go ahead and use 20. Okay, instead of semi-bold, let me just use regular here, -4 here. Okay, so I think for the outline here, for this 2-stroke here, instead of 25, I'm going to use 10. Okay, good. So you can see how we've designed this input field. So here you choose how the elements resizes based on the children or the parents. Here you choose the alignment. So let me use center here. You choose center left. You choose the alignment. Here is the gap between the contents. So if I increase here to 32, you are going to see that gap increase. So let me take it back to 16. Okay. Meanwhile, here you choose the padding, the left and right padding, and the top and bottom padding. And also here, this first one, you choose the direction. For instance, you can see that everything is going down. If I want to flow it this other way, I click here. Everything, they are now this other way. They are now like this. Okay, let me bring it back to the bottom. Okay, so I hope I'm able to answer this question. So you can see how, also like the person that made that said something about responsive design, you can see how responsive this sign-in form is. It's very, very responsive. Okay, so you can just make the width 250. So it's a very, very responsive form here. You have a very responsive form. Before I take the last question. Do we have any other question? Okay, so this particular one, we have a separate class on this. So I'm not sure it's something I'm able to just answer based on this live class, because even if I answer it and you don't practice it, you still won't know it. So making a design responsive is quite easy. It's just for you to understand what you call breakpoints and also understand how your grid works on a grid point. Okay? Understanding breakpoints and also how your grids work on a grid layout. Okay? But the reality is, the truth is, if you are really working on a project nowadays in 2025, you might not necessarily have to do the mobile responsive version nowadays, except in some rare cases. So we have of how it works, of how responsive design works. And also, like you said, you are trying to make it on a prototype. Maybe you want a prototype where maybe as you are increasing, okay, if you are increasing the screen, then it shows the person the breakpoints. So on the web, we have 3 major breakpoints on the web. Okay, we have the desktop, which is the big screen. You have the tablet.